The Lex Scantinia protected free Roman males from sexual violation and was enforced, when it was enforced, on behalf of their dignity and civic standing. The tax on sex workers was enforced on behalf of the state's fiscal interests. The workers themselves were the mechanism by which both systems operated, and neither system was designed to protect them. The path forward. Manumission, the legal process of freeing an enslaved person, was practiced in Rome more commonly than in most ancient slave societies. Roman owners freed enslaved people for a range of reasons: genuine affection built over years of close contact, the desire to legitimate children produced with enslaved partners, the economic calculation that a freed person with ongoing obligations was more efficient than continued ownership, or simple reward for sustained service. Freedom did not erase infamia. A freed person who had worked in the sexual trade remained infamous. Manumission changed the legal category significantly, improving property rights, access to marriage, physical security, and the right to accumulate and transmit wealth, without touching the registration that documented what you had done. Your children, born after your manumission, would be full Roman citizens. The taint did not pass to them. The formal category cleared in one generation. In your own lifetime, the record stayed. Some men in situations like yours accumulated enough through the peculium, the informal personal savings that Roman owners sometimes permitted, or through gifts from patrons, to purchase their own freedom or to set themselves up in a different occupation after freedom was granted. A pure delicatus, whose patron genuinely cared for him, might be freed and maintained as a freedman with ongoing financial support. The patron-client obligations that structured Roman social life could translate into real material provision if the patron chose to honor them. The commercial end of the trade did not produce these outcomes reliably. A man who worked in a low-end fornix serving anonymous clients at minimal prices was not building the relationship with a single patron that could lead to manumission through affection. He was providing a service to a clientele with no ongoing stake in his welfare. The peculium he might accumulate was thin. The path out was narrower. What the philosophers said and what it cost them nothing to say. Roman intellectual culture had a complex and largely self-serving relationship with the institution it depended on. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote at length that masters should treat enslaved people with humanity, because they were human beings sharing in the same rational nature as their owners. He also owned enslaved people. He wrote this philosophy from a position of considerable comfort, while the institution he was philosophizing about continued operating unchanged around him. Epictetus, who was himself enslaved before being freed, addressed the situation of an enslaved person whose owner required sexual service directly. His advice was essentially philosophical resignation. The distinction between what is within one's power, one's own judgments and inner responses, and what is outside it, one's body and what happens to it. The advice reflects the limits of what philosophy could offer someone in that situation. Epictetus could not tell the enslaved person how to refuse. He could only suggest how to maintain a sense of internal freedom, while the external reality continued. Juvenal and Martial wrote about you as a satirical subject. Their interest was in the social comedy of the situation, the clients who paid too much, the pretenders who concealed their private habits behind public respectability, the cultural decadence that the existence of the trade supposedly demonstrated. Their interest was not in you. It was in what you represented to their argument about the state of Roman society. You were a prop in a rhetorical performance aimed at an audience that did not include you and was not concerned with your interests. The silence that remains. The Roman sources that describe this world were written by people who were not in it. Martial and Juvenal provide the most extensive literary evidence for male sex work in Rome, and both of them treat the subject as satirical material. They are interested in you as a social type, as evidence of decadence, as a vehicle for arguments about cultural decline and the failure of Roman masculinity in weak men. They are not interested in what the situation felt like from your side of it. The legal texts are more factual and in some ways more useful. Ulpian's analyses of infamia and the legal status of various categories of persons tell you clearly what your registration meant in terms of civic exclusion. They do not tell you what it felt like to carry that exclusion. Archaeological evidence tells you about the spaces, the size of the rooms, the stone beds, the prices inscribed on the walls, the graffiti written by clients about the workers whose names appear alongside the evaluations. The workers themselves did not leave written records. The economic and legal framework that organized their existence was designed to record what was transactionally relevant about them. What was transactionally relevant was their price, their registration status, their tax liability, and their legal capacity or incapacity to bring various kinds of legal actions. Who they were beyond that was not a category of information the Roman system found worth preserving. The historical record is thorough about the system. It is almost completely silent about the experience of living inside it. That silence is not an accident. It is the document. 2,000 years later, the stone beds at the Lupanar are still there. Tourists walk through them. The names on the walls have been catalogued by scholars. The prices have been analyzed in economic studies of Roman commerce. The people whose names are on those walls, and the people in the parallel institutions whose names did not make it even this far into the record, remain at the edge of what the written history can reach. We know what they cost. We know what the state collected from them. We know what the satirists made of them. What they made of their lives is a question the surviving sources do not answer. The Romans built a precise taxonomy for everything about this world except the interior of the people living in it. That precision is one kind of knowledge. What it left out is another kind entirely.